Today you are going to be doing the first step of our larger project that's going to combine several elements that we have learned so far. For today, I would have your first project that we did, where we talked about complex patterns. And if we remember, a complex pattern has 3 or more motifs. So I've got a smiley face, heart, dotted line, and each motif must repeat 3 or more times and fill the space. We're going to use that concept today as the first step in our project. So I have both of mine from 2 different classes, but I would have this next to you today. This was the first thing we completed 2 weeks ago in class, so have that with you, and this will go much easier. Okay, so you're going to have a folder. Yours might say Calvert Middle School. It's not going to be labeled 8th, but here's where you're going to find the paper I want you to use today. When you open this up, on one side you're going to find small pieces of colored paper. There might be some black paper, and then in the back you're going to find some white paper that's going to be smooth, no texture. This is like a heavy tag. In the manila folder in your art kit, you're going to find regular drawing paper. On this side, very textured paper, that is watercolor paper. So we're not going to touch that. We need to save that. We have just enough to do the projects we're going to do in there. But you're going to take a piece of this heavy tag from the back on this side, and that's what we're going to use today to get started. So this heavy tag is just takes a little bit more abuse. We're going to be, drawing on it, markering on it, using colored pencil, and we're going to be blending colored pencil later on it. So we need something that is a little more heavy duty, ideally, than a regular piece of drawing paper. Okay, so you're going to need a pencil and your Sharpie marker. This is the fine point. It says fine on it. And you also have an ultra fine in your art kit. You actually have a pencil in your art kit as well. And the first step we're going to do is this. You're going to put your hand down. So if whatever hand you don't write with is going down on this paper. So if you're right-handed, you're going to be tracing your left. And if you are left-handed, you're going to be tracing your right. Okay? So I'm right-handed, so I'm going to put my left hand down, and here's what I want. I want your hand coming in from the corner and then spreading out on the page, and we want to have some room on all sides and probably a little bit more room under the thumb, but make sure that we're sort of hand-centered on the page. Then, keeping your pencil very vertical, you're going to trace your hand. We're not making turkeys. But we're going to be using this to contain the symbols that we gathered about ourselves, and we're going to be putting some patterns, some complex patterns into the background. Okay. All right, so trace my hand. Looks pretty good. Now, one thing I can say is, you want to make sure that your pencil remains very vertical when you're tracing your hand. If you tilt the pencil and it goes underneath your hand like this, like say I'm doing this and I'm watching my hand, but I'm not paying attention to the angle of my pencil, and my pencil tip is slipping under my fingers. If you do this, you will get this. I call this alien hand. No alien hand. Now, the reverse is, if you're doing this, and you start tracing your hand and you're angling out like this. And it's not sliding under your hand, but going away from your hand. You're going to get that kind of hand. I call that Stay Puff Marshmallow Man hand. Okay, so if you've seen Ghostbusters, you know what that is. So If you haven't seen Ghostbusters, you gotta see it. We don't want that either. Okay, so we want our hand traced. And if you need to, you can start over on the back. If you're using heavy tag, you won't see it. So the next thing we're going to do is, from each of our fingertips, we're going to make a line connecting out to the edge. Now you can choose what kind of line this is, as long as it's not a broken line, so no spaces. So I'm going to do a flowing one, I'm going to do a zigzag one, I'm going to do one that looks like a wave, I'm going to do a, well, maybe I'll just do a straight one here. Here I'm going to do like a scalloped one. Okay, so now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 spaces. I've got a big space sitting here and a big space here. So a line out from each tip, and I'm going to break this into another space because this is awfully large. And I'm going to break this side probably into a space because that's pretty large as well. So let's see, here I'm going to do a tighter flowing line. That looks pretty good. And here I'm going to do just a different kind of zigzag. I'm going to do an uneven zigzag. Okay, so I've got 8 spaces. That's perfect. Now, you're going to do this. We're going to trace our hand. So using our fine Sharpie, we're going to trace our hand. And we're going to trace those dividers. So we're going to have this, this is the only time we're going to use our bold Sharpie, is to trace this. And then it's okay if you miss a tiny bit. Just try not to miss too much. Like there, I missed a little bit, but it's okay. I'm going to erase that. We want to be as close as we can. So I'm going to trace out my edges. And if you are working on, you know, a kitchen table or a surface, you may want to put something under this. The heavy tag will not let the marker go through. But if you go off on the edges, you will put permanent marker on your table. And the only advice I have for getting permanent marker off of anything is try hand sanitizer. Okay, so now I'm done with my permanent marker, so I can put this one away. And in your art kit, you also have an eraser. And you have a piece. In fact, yours would look something, you have like a quarter of a piece of this. So you have something that looks like this, okay? And it is a piece of a larger magic rub eraser, which is a vinyl eraser. And you're going to use that vinyl eraser then to get rid of all that pencil. The vinyl eraser is pretty gentle on the page, meaning it's not. So sometimes pencil erasers have heavy grit in them, and when you erase, sometimes they damage the page. This is a pretty gentle eraser. There's an even more gentle eraser. It's called a kneaded eraser, but this is what we're going to use on our heavy tag to erase away all the pencil. Because eventually we're going to be coming in here and doing some color pencil, and we don't want to have any gray from our pencil. All right, so we traced our hand, we went over it in Sharpie. Now we're ready to start putting in our complex patterns. So in each of these spaces, you'll be putting in a complex pattern, and some will fit in some spaces better than others. You're welcome to use the ones you created. If you created your 10 different ones, you only need 8 here. If you want to create other ones, you're welcome to. The one word of advice I would give you is this, however. Eventually we're going to add color in here. And we want to make sure that when we're adding color, that we make our shapes so that they are big enough to color. And I'll show you one that is done. So on this one, like we want to have shapes that we can actually get inside and color. So if we make the shapes too tiny, or if we make the shapes with too many inside details, they sometimes get hard to color, okay? So let's start. So I'm just going to start here. And the other thing is this. We don't want to put an identical kind of line. So if we're using lines inside, so let's say right here, I'm going to use straight lines to divide this. And I'm not making them really close together. That's going to be my first motif in here is going to be straight lines. I don't want to see straight lines in this one. So I don't want you to put the exact same motif. So just like on these, where we started out altering, we had zigzags, flowing lines, straight, curve. Here we had a grid. Here we had them radiating from one point. And then here we had some that were random. We want to mix it up when we're on here. So like in this one, I'm going to do, and I'm going to just build some basic beginnings that I will then put my other motifs into. So here I'm going to do flowing lines. Here in the next one I'm going to do something that is like random so that they're not, you know, not everything's line, line, line. In this one I'm going to do zigzag lines, and I'm going to do zigzag this way across, and I might use zigzag another one but going long ways. So here I'm going to do zigzag, and I'm leaving enough space in between so this won't be difficult to color when I'm done. In this one, I'm going to do, like curly Q lines, and they're going to go this way. So I'm going to go like one here. And remember, I've got to get 3 of these in here to count them as a motif. There's 2, and then my third one will go here. So I've got 3, that counts as one motif. In this next one, I'm going to do a grid. So I'm going to go this direction. Again, don't make anything too tiny or too tight. And you are welcome to follow along and do these, or you can invent your own. So here I'm going to do grid like a checkerboard. So that's my first motif, or straight lines. In this one, I'll probably do a random pattern. And then in this one, I'm going to do, so here I have diagonals. Here I'm going to do just lines that are, I'm going to make them radiating from one point. So I'm going to choose my point here, and I'm going to go this, 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 and there's my, so these are my first steps in. Now I'm going to go start putting in my next motif. So in this one is going to be random. I'm just going to pick, and I really like, I did one on my pattern sheet where I did suns, moons, and stars. So I'm going to come into this one, and I'm going to start here, and I'm going to put, first I'll map out where my suns are going to go, and I'm going to let some look like they're even going like off the side, and I'm making sure I have enough to fill the page. Okay, so there's my suns. Do those first, and then so this is my random. So I've got my 3 motifs are sun, and again, I'm making these big enough that I can get inside and color them. I'm not making, so I'm giving these spikes that are like triangles so that I actually can color inside those as well. If I just did lines, they would disappear into the background color. So that's why I'm actually doing like closed shapes. All right, and then I'm going to do moons. And I'm going to do stars. And when I trace my star, I'll probably just trace on the outline around it, and then I'll erase the inside lines. And that'll give me an area to color in. right here, I need something. Okay, so there is, my first one is done. That's my random one. And I'm going to do a random one here. In the rest of these, I'm going to start coming in and layering in my patterns. So in here, I'm going to do a pattern of, I'm going to do hearts in this row, skip a row. So my second motif in here is going to be hearts. And then I'm going to do this. I'm going to do a pattern of large circle, small circle, large circle, small. So I'm just going to change it up. Now, here's the thing. Once you use a motif in one place, I don't want you to use it again. So I'm not going to use large circle, small circle. That doesn't mean I can't use a circle somewhere else, but it means I have to change up how I'm using it. Okay? So in, let's say, I'm going to go to, and I definitely don't want to put anything that looks like any of these into this one here. So I'm going to change it up as I move into this one, and I'm going to do this. I'm going to do triangles. And then I'm going to skip one. And I'm going to do diamonds, like my Steeler diamonds. Oh no, I want to save that because I want to do diamonds and footballs later. So I guess I will do squares. Now, these are a lot of like geometrics. So, you know, triangles and squares, circles, those are really basic. There's lots of other motifs you can do. So, like mixing it up and doing some more interesting ones like I did here. Another one is I'm going to do one in this one. I'm going to go back to using, I am going to use some circles, but I'm going to do circles, like big circle and then a smaller circle inside. So I'm changing the motif. And in here, I'm going to do, for my other motif, I'm going to do like just a basic fish. And you've got to fill the space. I don't want to see one row. Like, I don't want to see one row of fish, like one in every other one. You've got to fill the space, but definitely think about making your motifs large enough so that you'll be able to color them. Okay, so I'm not going to do every single one, but if you're going to use something like a circle again, like here and here, they just cannot be used in the same way. You have to change it up. It could be by putting another shape inside. It could be by alternating and changing the size. And like, let's say in here, I'm going to do something where I'm going to be coloring this like a checkerboard. So my motif in here is going to be a little bit different. I'm going to come inside and I'm going to do my initials. And I'm going to do it by row. I'm going to like alternate blank, J. And I'm going to go to the next row. And I would come one over, blank, J, blank, that would be J. And the other way you can figure this out is they either, like, they go on a diagonal. So if I figure out that I'm doing on the diagonal, that makes it easy to figure out. And you'll always check back that it's every other one. So if you ever get lost, you're just going one row over. Like, so I put one on and then I come over one when I start the next row. But there's a couple ways to check that you did it correctly. So there's my alternating pattern with my J, because I already have the box there. And then into the other shape, I'm going to do, let me think. I'm going to do, let's see, I'm going to do a triangle with lines. So I'm going to come in here, I'm going to do triangle, with lines. So triangle with lines. So I'm using a triangle again, but I'm altering it. Okay, and I would do this in every other one. Now, and so I'm not going to finish because I'm not going to waste the time on the video, but you would pattern each section 3 motifs. Each motif must repeat 3 or more times. And then, and this one I really want to do, my paw prints and my dog bones. So I got paw prints. So I'm going to do one more just because I don't want to leave it off of here. And I'm going to do dog bones. And for my third motif there, I'm going to do hearts with diagonal lines. And if you go online and search patterns, you're going to get tons. The only thing I would warn you about using is do not use a pattern that is like just an open shape. If you need like closed shape patterns like this, like the bones, this is an open pattern. But because I have blocks that I'll be coloring other colors in the background, and I have another shape that I'll be coloring in, it will be fine in there. I'll probably add something in the corners here just to make this more interesting. Like I'll put dots in the corner in each of the J's. All right, so once you have your patterns done, you're then going to take your ultra fine Sharpie and you're going to trace over all of your patterns. So we'll be using class time and our Friday time to do this. And for my stars, I'm going to trace on the outside edge of my star. So in every one of these, and you're not going to worry if you miss a little bit because you'll be able to go back in with your magic rub eraser. That's that vinyl white eraser. And you'll be able to take out any pencil lines that you didn't trace on top of. But we're going to trace every single one. And then we're going to erase the pencil, and that'll be it. You'll be ready for the next step, which will be next class. Alright, so I'm just going to finish this one section and I'll show you what you're going to do. But the neater you do this, when you're tracing, we want to be pretty neat, not messy and over penning too much, because it makes it harder to color it in if you have a lot of extra over penning. So here I'm going to trace. But you can do any kinds of shapes, trapezoids, parallelograms. You can do, I could do ladybugs and leaves. It's really up to you what your motifs are and how complex they are. Okay, so there's one that I have traced in ultrafine Sharpie. Then I'm going to go in with my magic rub eraser and I'm going to erase away all that gray pencil. And I'm supporting the paper when I'm erasing so it doesn't wrinkle or tear. Supporting means my fingers are down, holding the paper down on either side. And then I'm scrubbing in the middle. Another way to do this is to hold up here and then just pull one direction towards you. And if you're using that heavy tag, it will hold up to, really some pretty intense erasing without damaging the surface. And that is it. You will trace each one of your patterns and photograph your work and submit. Make sure that when you photograph, I'd be tempted to turn it sideways. It'll fit into your camera screen better. Make sure it's focused so I can see the different motifs, and you're done.